Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what's possible. And I have a couple of the authors of a new book we have coming out here today to help me with that mission. Holistic Mental Health. Calm, clear, and in control for the rest of your life. I love reading that subtitle, you guys. It's powerful. So before I introduce these two to you, let me just say a huge thank you to Laura Mazzata, our lead author of this new book. Laura, we wouldn't be here without you. Thank you so much for bringing this amazing expert cast of authors together for this subject that, I know you and I have been talking about this for a while. This book is really needed in the world. It was before, it's more now. And I'm very, very excited that you said yes to this project. So thank you. You guys, I have Dr. Gabe Roberts with me. He is the co-founder of Holographic Manipulation Therapy and master therapist at the Subconscious Healer Ministry. I also have Steph Furo. She is a self-empowerment, I'm sure it's development too, right? Guide for brave souls breaking from the old plan to reclaim their purpose and path. Welcome, you two. How's it going today?
Thank you. Really good.
Doing excellent.
Good. I'm excited to get into this conversation. I know both of you have some awesome golden nuggets to share with our listeners. Gabe, I'm going to start the party with you today. Tell me about your amazing chapter that you wrote.
Well, it just kind of describes the work that we do, which is psychosomatic medicine. And this has to do with helping people reverse a number of chronic illnesses, whether it's autoimmune, mystery symptoms, chronic pain that just won't go away, and just a variety of different ailments that people have that at the root cause is repressed emotions, usually from childhood traumas. And these people have exhausted every other resource. Usually they have tried functional medicine, they've tried naturopathic medicine, they've taken every supplement, every vitamin, every herb, every mushroom they possibly can to gain their health back. And when they contact us, our approach is quite different. We do a lot of regressive work, going back to the root seed of where that initial onset was planted in their unconscious mind, and we change it there. And this actually has a positive impact on the genetic expression that their cells have, because their identity, their self-image, the image of how they see themselves suddenly changes to where they no longer match a person who has unintentionally, unconsciously, unwillingly attracted that illness in the first place. And so when the psyche is properly addressed, they no longer match that illness and the symptoms begin to dissolve away. So it's a covering that and covering some of the a little bit more of the specifics that's involved. So
and this topic is so fascinating. I'm going to rewind to repressed emotions for just a minute. One of the missions of these books is to give people a toolkit and hope. Like, you've tried 15 things. Well, guess what? I have the 16th thing. Don't give up, right? There might be something that you haven't touched on yet that could change everything. And the way that you're talking about this makes me think that it's like, wow, okay, if you've tried all of these things, including some natural types of holistic things, there still might be something that nobody tapped into that could change everything. So tell me, clients are showing up. What were the signs? Maybe they could catch some of this stuff and say, hey, I could work on that. But how is it showing up in their life in a practical way? How do they know they need to do this?
When they've exhausted everything else and intuitively, deep down, they know there's something missing. And this was the case for me and my endeavor in functional medicine. I do have a background in functional medicine, a diplomate in nutrition, and working with people for a decade, we noticed a trend that whenever we're doing lab work and more advanced functional lab testing and 16-page stool analysis. So some of the most in-depth testing available in the world. And we would tweak the numbers. We would give them specific supplements or parasite cleanses or things for Lyme and things for detoxing and things for heavy metals and all these other variety that functional medicine target. And their lab tests would come out improved, but they would still feel off. They would still feel like something was incomplete. And this is just a very deep, intuitive knowing. And they would still feel like they're still guessing on some way, shape, or form. They're still guessing. And many times the lab tests would improve and the person, they might feel better. They might have more energy. They might feel like the pain has changed. And what happens to many functional medicine practitioners is what they experience with their patients. And I found this out through interviewing several different colleagues, as well as our own experience, is that although there might be improvements when they go through like a functional medicine or a naturopathic approach, there might be some improvements. But within a year, maybe a few years, maybe even 6 months, the person will inadvertently, again, unintentionally recreate something else. And say they have Lyme, okay, and you use herbs to get rid of the Borrelia burgdorferi, you use things to detox it out, get their lymphatics moving, they improve. Well, in a year, maybe a few years, now the person has chronic mono. They have Epstein-Barr virus that's showing up. And so you teach them about the right kind of diets to keep the viruses in check. Teach them about how to use calcium and things like that, and how to control the viruses. And next thing you know, they have a tremendous amount of fatigue. So it's almost like, even though we're using natural approaches and we're using things that are safer than many drugs and just layering on more and more medications in attempt to kind of mask the symptoms, we tend to do that with natural supplements more often than we'd like to admit. And with the patient's standpoint, it's almost like we're playing whack-a-mole. We're hitting something, goes down, hitting something, goes down, hitting something, goes down. So my wife and I had an epitome about 5 years ago that not only with ourselves, not only looking at our own personal lives and our own personal health, and my background as of course being a veteran in the Marines and having my own experiences in childhood traumas, I was doing functional medicine for my patients, but also for myself, doing everything I could to try to end this unconscious pain, this deep down boiling sensation deep in the body. And none of the approaches would help. They would give me some temporary relief, but sure enough, it would come back shortly. And so if someone out there recognizes this kind of pattern, then it's more than likely something that has to do with the deepest root of their unconscious. And the most powerful memories that we have are formed in the womb all the way up till about 5 to 6 years old. And 98% of our clients, when they have autoimmune, when they have cancer, when they have chronic autoimmune cases or something that just baffles even the most seasoned doctors, like all of a sudden a paralyzed arm just out of nowhere, more than likely it's something that a seed was planted during those crucial years. And that's where we visit. And we basically give that younger version the resources, the emotional needs that weren't met. We basically go back and give them what they needed, and their body responds beautifully. And through what's called psychoneuroimmunology, anything that happens to us emotionally is controlled by the same brain centers that control our immune system, our digestive system, hormonal apparatus, and our nervous system. So if we are having an emotional effect on any way, shape, or form in life, it spills over and will begin to affect those other systems in our body.
Thank you for explaining some of the science and giving us some ideas about this. All right, you guys, stay tuned. We're going to hear more from Dr. Roberts in just a few minutes. There's a lot in your chapter, Gabe. There's a lot, and it's really, really amazing, fascinating. Thank you. And thank you both for saying yes to this project and for really stepping up with your amazing stories. First of all, your personal stories, letting us get to know you. But then the master teachings are just beyond. And I knew I wanted to give people these toolkits and that kind of hope. And so it's just exciting to hear you talk about it. Steph, how about you? Tell us about your amazing chapter.
I will. And I'll say, I'm so fascinated listening to Dr. Roberts speak as well. And really where I work and where I'm most passionate is the intersection of science and spirituality. And I think there's just magic where those places meet. And now you will hear me speak mostly about spirituality as I describe my chapter. You really meet me in my chapter at a low point on my journey. I'm on my knees crying in the woods because like everything has just fallen apart. You know, it was one of those moments where you're like, I've done all the right things. I have done all the right things. I have been healing. I am growing. I'm taking responsibility. I'm making these changes. I've done this, I've done that. And yet everything had fallen apart. Every plan had blown up. Every relationship in my life was strained, and it just felt like a complete dead end. But what it really did for me was it brought me to a place, and ultimately I believe that we all have this invitation at some point in our life to let go. It brought me to this place where I was invited to let go of everything that I was forcing and managing and trying to control. And it was actually in that moment that I could trace it back to childhood and had this like bomb almost of awareness where I was like, oh my goodness, this pattern goes all the way back to when I was a child. And, you know, just this mentality that like, if I just do all the right things, if I just follow all the rules, hold it all together, then we'll all be okay. We'll all be safe. Everybody will be happy. Everybody will be healthy. As long as I just, you know, hold it all the time. and it was in that moment too, I could feel how heavy that was and how excruciating that was, and how I'm modeling that way of living for my young children. And it was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, even if I wanted to, I can't. And so it was like, well, what else? If I'm at the end of myself, what else? And it was really coming to this place of identifying more as my soul, recognizing that it is not just me and my muscle carrying me through this life. Like, we do have other resources, and it is actually when we let go and when we surrender and trust that we open ourselves to the flow of life and possibility. And so I offer a practice around working with your parts, and it's ultimately a way to help teach yourself that you are not your parts. You are not this or that. You are the soul behind and underneath it all that is already whole, and that can hold all of those parts, however attractive they are or not.
Your parts. Yes, we need all the parts addressed. So, you know, you mentioned awareness. It's one of my favorite topics ever to talk about. Dr. Roberts talked about a little bit of the awareness you might have of a pattern, a cyclical pattern. You are talking about the patterns as well. This followed me all the way and you know, back into my childhood, and I recognized, right? So I think that's where I want to help people. Is in their awareness practice. And this book is full of nuggets like that are going to help people practice. We all practice in different ways. Steph, I want to stay with you for this next question about that. For me, feeling is the healing. Feeling is an awareness practice, noticing your thoughts, noticing your emotions, noticing your feelings, your sensations. So helping people feel is a part of this for me. What does your awareness practice look like in the day-to-day? Give us a little window into your personal practice.
Day to day. I like that. Um, well, I have 2 young kids, and so I need to be intentional about creating space for myself to become aware and to go within, and that's morning for me. So it you know what? I would say over the years, it's just gotten more and more simple because it's exactly as you say, Laura, it's feeling. And in the past, I maybe had like 6 steps of how I would, tune into this or that. And now it's like I'm just gonna sit in this chair and look at the wall or close my eyes. I mean, it really is that simple. And morning is a nice space for me because I'm already kind of slow and quiet. It's easier for me to sit still. It might be harder for me to get my butt on the couch later, but it really is that. You know, um, it's whether that morning space happens or not, it's just the devotion to myself to say that I know I'm going to be living in my best way today. I know that I'm going to be, following the flow and that it's good things coming up in my day. But this devotion to say like, and I need to come home to myself. That's the way I conceptualize it. Like, and I need to come back home. And so I find it even in just like really small moments, like afternoon, evening, just whenever I start to feel like I've been scattered a little bit or that, parts of me have run away through the different parts of the day, just just being and breathing and as you say, just kind of feeling and noticing. And then like this is the part that I think is hard, is that we want to go into these spaces already having the answer, already knowing how we feel, or already knowing how we should feel, or already knowing what it should result in after we get up from the couch and go do the next thing. But it's just entering that space, treating it like the unknown, treating it like I don't know what I'm going to discover, but I'm open to it all.
A lot of our authors have been talking about their miracle morning. You guys have read that book, maybe? I don't know. But I love the practice of awareness first thing in the morning to set my day. And I love it last thing of the day to set my nighttime. And yeah, it's simple when you get down to it. Gabe, how about you? Give us a little window into your day-to-day with your awareness practice.
Okay, so it is very important to have that awareness and to practice it. In my experience, the people that set aside a little time throughout their day-to-day routine, whether it's 4 minutes, and mine actually takes about 4 to 6 minutes, and again, twice a day, the people that take the time to practice that, becoming aware of themselves and doing some kind of little practice literally for spiritual building. I mean, that's really what it's about. Because if you're intoxicated with the essence that already flows within us, you're going to be in a state of harmony. And that's what's really important, is know that we're a human being, not a human being. So we're a process of processes, and every time, every day, we're vulnerable to new changes, whether they're in our lives or whether the people around us. We're more connected than we think. There's a huge connection between people, this collective consciousness that we're all part of. And of course, I study this kind of things because whenever people come to me, I talk about the mind and how powerful the mind is. And I want them to understand of just what kind of power they're wielding, and maybe unintentionally using it incorrectly. And that's why there's some kind of symptom. So the first thing I tell them is, just for example, a very brief study. There's a Harvard University professor named William McDougall, and he put together rats in a water maze, and he wanted to he wanted to see if intelligence could be passed down. So he put these rats in a water maze and counted how many times does it take before this rat only goes out the exit I want him to. There's an exit where it's dark, and there's an exit where there's a small light, but it receives a mild electric shock. So he counts how many times it take this rat to move and only go out the exit where he doesn't get shocked. And it took around 230 tries. Then he took the offspring of that rat, ran it through the same maze, counted again, it took about 180. Ran it through again, it took about 160. So he could see the rats were getting smarter from generation to generation. So he thought it was something that had to do with genetic. Another professor in Australia looked at his paperwork and decided to reproduce that test. So he got all this paperwork. Now, this is on a whole different continent. Okay. These people had never met. He put together the identical dimensions of this maze, got the same species of rat, and began running it through his own water maze and counting. And when he did, his number started out where William McDougall left off. So that just is one simple demonstration of the spiritual connection. That's when and I have thousands of studies like this that are really fascinating. So with this kind of understanding and this kind of awareness of just what's going on the unseen mind, and the things we're not told about, the things we're not, taught in schools and academia and mainstream, it really lets you know, wow, there's really something to me. So I need to practice as much as I can. So my morning routine, I get up, and the first thing I do is go to my heart center. So I put all my attention into my heart, because your heart has, it's the only other part of your body that has what are called sensory neurites, cells that function very similar to brain cells. They have the ability to think, they have the ability to learn, they have the ability to feel, they have the ability to remember. And all too often, our brains, even if we go back and clear all the trauma, our brains are still very biased. Our minds are still very biased in the way we look at the world and the way we look at ourselves, the way we look at others. And if we can just get out of our brain and go into our heart for a few minutes, the benefits of that last around 6 hours. So every morning and every evening, I go right to my heart, and then I really feel and supercharge my entire body with the sensation of gratitude. Okay. Gratitude, appreciation, things like that. And so I do that twice a day. And the state of gratitude is almost one of the most powerful states that we can be in, that we can resonate, and tremendous things happen. Life starts to happen for you. Randomness kind of starts to go away, and more clear directions begin to start happening if you're constantly resonating gratitude for whatever it might be, whether it was something that happened last week or something that happened 2 years ago. Majority of us can find something that really makes us feel grateful. And if we can amplify that feeling and just carry it with us every day, it really starts to spill out in our everyday lives, and our happiness, our health, our well-being, and the desires and the dreams and the goals that we have in mind. So
we happen to be recording this episode on World Gratitude Day, you guys. So how perfect is that, right? We were just talking about it this morning in a meeting, and I'm really enjoying understanding about the cells of the heart, like the brain. That was a little light bulb for me, because I think that we feel that the heart does that, but we were never really taught that it was different from, the brain, or, the same as the brain. Even better than the brain, it sounds like to me, like if you can really connect and understand the possibility there. So my morning routine, I think, is going to have a new little power now after hearing you talk about that. Okay, this is going to sound like a funny question for you, Gabe, because you're already talking about it. You've been talking about it since the beginning of the show, but why is it important to use a holistic approach when it comes to mental health? can you carry this conversation further for the listener who might have only had a certain traditional approach so far, or has been told that this is the way, that you get better? I know you have already been talking about this today.
Right. Well, I think if you're going to look at a whole holistic approach, you have to understand wholeness. And what that means is everything you really need to heal is already within you. And this has been demonstrated through placebos. So for someone who is convinced that they need a medication to heal, it's very interesting if you start just doing a little bit of research on placebo effects and what they actually are able to produce in clinical trials, just that alone. And it's not, it's very fascinating, some of the studies, even including surgery, people that get sham knee surgeries and they outperform, in other words, the people that maybe had a little slice and they stitched it right up without even going in and doing anything, versus someone else that gets fully opened up and gets a full knee replacement. And then they re-examine them 6 months later through surveys and interviews. And the people that just had a little slice and got stitched up actually do better than many of the knee replacements. And there was actually no work done. So what mechanism is going on with that, as well as people having diabetes, depression, and chronic pain improving when someone in a white coat steps in the room and says, so you've got depression, you have this, and you have chronic pain, and you have chronic pain, depression, and diabetes. Someone in a white coat, a perceived authority, walks in and hands them a sugar pill and monitors their improvements, monitors their progress from this. And suddenly a person with diabetes has improved sugar levels when taking a sugar pill. So what mechanism is going on there? It's absolutely belief. It's absolutely belief in the process that this is what I need, this is what I need to take. And in reality, it was a sugar pill. So Dr. Bruce Lipton's work proves that 99% of the disease process is through a signal. What signal are we giving ourselves? What signal is our mind, our unconscious mind, telling ourselves and how to behave? What are they listening to constantly? And if you give them the message that this is going to make me improve, I'm going to improve, this is going to make me feel better, the cells have no choice but to follow that directive, even if what they're taking in reality is a sugar pill. So the point is, what we need is already inside of us. And I've learned this through having a very heavily nutritional based clinic with people taking lots of supplements, and taking lots of pills throughout the day, and there'd be some improvement, and yeah, it's a little better. What's another protocol? What's another protocol? What's another protocol? And when I was doing this, I really thought I was of service for people. And then I started reading about placebo, and I found that most people that have that harmony within their spirituality, their body can produce at least 200 pharmaceutical-like components. Their body has the ability to produce what they, and that's 200 measurable. So how many are not measurable? How many are we not even aware of that it can do? And once I started getting into the psychosomatic type work, and I started working with people's emotions, and I started studying everything I possibly could on how to effectively have a person change their past. Okay. And I studied everything from becoming a master level hypnotherapist to EMDR to emotional freedom technique, body code, emotional code, everything that you could possibly think of. I've studied, I've been in there, I've been a student, I've tried it clinically. And that's where holographic manipulation therapy comes in, because it's just a complete package of having a person that has no idea, they've never experienced anything like that, being able to go back and change the actual holographic imprint of a memory that's very pliable, and do it in a way the nervous system accepts the change. So sometimes the nervous system is it can recognize things as foreign very quickly, and ideas are the same way. Energy works the same way. Acupuncture and chiropractic are the same way. Massage therapy is the same way. It can recognize that I'm getting something done and it's from the outside. So there's firewalls in there somewhere that it's not going to let fully penetrate. When a person produces the answer within themselves, the nervous system has no resistance to that whatsoever. So it's able to go to the deepest level and make the deepest change. And so if you're looking at holistic, it has to be whole system, and a person has to understand the answer is already within them. And I don't dismiss the power of nutrition. I don't dismiss the power of detoxing. Those are important practices to have. But again, if a person's identity is one of feeling unworthy, if they feel like they don't deserve to have happiness and health, if they don't have fully acceptance of themselves, if they don't feel safe, if they're carrying around resentment or betrayal deep in the pockets of the unconscious, I don't care how much organic broccoli they have. I don't care how much organic foods they eat or how much grass-fed butter they have. It's not going to override the self signal in the way that needs to be.
Yeah, powerful. Really powerful. I hope y'all are just letting this sink in terms of the possibility here. All right, Steph, when you think of holistic in terms of, what do you want people to know? Why do they need to look at a more holistic approach when it comes to mental health?
Because we are human and we are so very complex. And I think this actually ties in really well with my chapter, in the sense that, I'm talking about all these different parts of ourselves and ultimately recognizing our wholeness. But we are multidimensional. We are mind, we are body, we are spirit. And these systems are all alive and well, and they are so integrated with one another. They're so integrated that, you can't even, we talk about the mind-body connection, but it's more accurate to say that they're one, that you can't separate, you can't fully untangle what is what. And so recognizing that I am all of this, I have a brain, and my brain is an amazing computer tool. I have a heart that is perhaps even more amazing and powerful, and my body and my soul, and these are all I believe they all offer different doors through which you can meet yourself and experience yourself. And sometimes you're in the space of mind and you want to really think through something, but sometimes you're in the space of your body and feeling. And it's not that one is better than the other. It's that I am all of this. And I can, and also I think there's this aspect of like, I can allow myself to be multidimensional and maybe even a little messy sometimes. Like maybe I don't sense the perfect coherence between all systems, and I can still accept that, I am here and that it's enough, that it's enough right now.
I love listening to you both talk about this subject. It's so, it's deep. We could be talking for days about these types of things. Dr. Roberts mentioned Bruce Lipton, some of my favorite work. I think that was Biology of Belief that I listened to ages and ages ago. You guys are also making me think of Joe Dispenza. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself was one of my favorite books of his. And most recently, Michael Singer, who did The Untethered Soul, did the Surrender Experiment, which talks a lot about what you two are helping our listeners understand: brain, the mind, the heart, the interplay, the oneness of the system. Oh my goodness, you guys are so awesome. really, I can't say enough about how you all are out there in the world just trailblazing, being out loud about mental health, about what people need to pay attention to, and the fact that you're giving people perspective and opportunity to really heal. Somebody yesterday said, this is transformative, long-lasting results we're talking about here. It's not a Band-Aid, right? And I think everybody should want more transformative results from their therapies and modalities and practices. Okay, so let's do a super quick wrap up. Steph, if someone's listening and they are struggling, what's one thing you want them to know about being on this journey?
That struggle is part of the journey, that you're not in the wrong place, that you're not off track, that there's not even a problem per se, that it's part of the journey, and you can embrace it because there is another side, and as Dr. Gabe Roberts said, you have everything within you to navigate that.
Awesome. Thank you, Steph. Thank you for being here. How about you, Dr. Roberts? Wrap us up today. What's that one thing you want people to know?
We talked about awareness, and I think that is where it really starts, becoming more aware of yourself and aware of just how you react to the things in day-to-day life. I think one of the key points that can help a person recognize when they're beginning this journey of awareness is to understand the role of emotions, and to understand, like Steph said, that struggle is part of it. And what you want to know is that when you have an emotional shift take place, which occurs to people on a regular basis, when you have an emotional shift take place, understand that emotion is going to do things to you that you're not fully aware of. If you have an emotional shift, say of anger, something happens and you get angered, it's very important to know that anger, just like any emotion, forms almost like an organism. It almost becomes like an organism within you. It's like a life form suddenly. And like any life form, it's going to do whatever it takes to stay alive. So what happens is when a person has an emotional experience, in this case, anger, everything they're paying attention to in their conscious awareness suddenly shifts. It's suddenly skewed. It's suddenly biased, and it's dishonest. Everything you pay attention to now is only going to try to re-trigger and keep that emotion of anger alive, whether it's real or whether it's not, whether it's something that would never really anger you. It's going to now, because that organism, that life form of anger, has skewed what you're consciously paying attention to. So that's important to recognize. If you find yourself having an emotional shift, understand that whenever that's going on, really become aware that, okay, it's not me. My mind is lying to me to keep this alive. I shouldn't be upset for this long. It's my mind literally trying to keep that organism alive, trying to keep that emotion alive. It's very liberating when you become aware of that, because you can almost feel that unwanted, undesirable emotion start to just die off and start to get weaker and weaker and weaker. Now, this is important because many people don't know this, and they're just letting that organism control their life. That's why sometimes in the morning, if you wake up and you have one bad thing occur, you stub your toe or the tire's flat, automatically you're, the rest of the days, this is, it doesn't have to be that way. It's only that way because you have an organism inside of you now, an energetic organism that's going to skew everything you're consciously paying attention to, just an attempt to keep it alive. So if you can just become aware of your mind will lie to you when you have an emotional shift, that's very liberating.
That's a big one.
And then know that it's not permanent. Just whatever's going on is not permanent. This is a big factor in long-term grudges and things like that with people. Okay. So
I would imagine. I love that. I would call that a ninja move of awareness. That's my term for these up-leveled awareness practices. And that feels like one of them to me.
Very much so.
You guys, thank you so much, Steph, Dr. Roberts. Thank you both so much for what you do in the world. And thanks for being here today to share it with everyone.
Thank you.
You're very
Awesome.
welcome, Laura. It was a pleasure.
So listeners, I know something you heard today gave you the goosebumps, got you curious. And what I want you to do is just scroll down into the show notes, because I have both of these authors' websites there. I'm going to hook you up there, and I want you to take an exploration. Click on those sites, see what these experts are up to in the world. There is a lot of awesomeness going on there. And they are very generously there to answer a question, take you on the next step of support that you need. And so I hope that you do that, especially if you heard something today that you're like, what? I'm all right. I feel a little bit better about the possibilities now. And in terms of this book that is going to be coming out, remember you can join us for our live stream book launch party. That's going to be on October 7th, 10 a.m. Eastern on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page. I have you hooked up down below with that link as well. We're going to have all of the holistic mental health authors there with us that day, sharing their wisdom and their inspiration with you. And if you happen to be listening to this after that date, well, you can hop over to Amazon, because that means the book is ready and you can grab your copy today. And lastly, today, everybody, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.